Hi, hotties. Welcome to book club. Oh my God, it's my favorite episode of the month. So, this month we are talking about Drinking and Tweeting by Brandi Glanville. I know. What a figure. What a polarizing figure. Okay, so just a reminder for book club that I'm always going to give you like a brief summary of the book. It should be like the first like 10-ish minutes of the episode, maybe a little shorter for this one. And then the rest of the episode is an interview with my Grammy. Now, if this is your first time ever listening to book club, my Grammy is my favorite person on planet Earth. I love her. I'm obsessed with her. And I think a lot of people, especially my generation, I'm a millennial, born in 96, baby, do the math on my age. We don't always see our grandparents as people. And I feel lucky I still have my grandma. You know, so many of my friends like don't really know their grandparents or never knew them. And so it's just a way for us to like connect and, you know, and realize that me and my grandma have more in common than we know of. And I don't really read. So this book club gets me to read books even if they're written by Bravo celebrities. And my Grammy has never seen a reality show in her life. And yet she still reads these Bravo memoirs with me. So today we're talking again about Brandi Glanville, Drinking and Tweeting. So to start us off, Drinking and Tweeting is a juicy, unfiltered memoir chronicling the very, very public unraveling of Brandi's divorce to Eddie Cibrian and his famous affair with LeAnn Rimes. So the book has kind of like this scorched earth diary of like betrayal, survival, oversharing, and it's all kind of with Brandi's like signature humor, raw emotion, and just zero filter at all. So the story begins with Brandi as the stay-at-home mom and a former model living in this picture-perfect life in LA with Eddie and her two sons. But when she discovers his affair with LeAnn Rimes, her world implodes and she erupts. And she wants to scorch the town and tweet it all alive. And Brandi pulls no punches. She openly talks about her drinking habits, her, pressure to maintain this like super hot body post-divorce, and a lot of details about her vaginal rejuvenation surgery, which Grammy and I definitely talk about. So the memoir is part therapy session, part revenge plot, and a lot of you're not going to believe this tabloid stuff. So it also details her introduction into the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, a world she not only entered by design, but by financial necessity. She dives into her initial, clashes with the cast, insecurity on how she felt like an outsider, and then how she embraced all the fame that followed with it. So beneath all the wild anecdotes, very graphic details, there's a clear thread. Brandi is trying to reclaim her identity after being betrayed and abandoned. While her methods are unconventional and often very questionable, the rawness of her emotion is really kind of what makes this book. And it's very undeniable, how raw it is. Whether you see her as a feminist anti-hero or just a really hot public mess, it just depends on your lens, But one thing's for sure, Brandi will not be silenced. Not in life, not on Twitter, and definitely not in this book. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy my interview with my Grammy. And I bring this up at the end of the episode, but we will be off next week. I'm actually going to be spending time IRL with Grammy. I'm going to Indiana and I'm bringing my producer with me, but we're not going to work there. We're just going to have fun. So we'll be off next week, but in in the meantime, be sure to follow us on social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all those places. And we're coming up on our 50th episode, and we have a lot of fun surprises in hand. So be sure to be following us there. All right, bye, hotties. And I would like to welcome Grammy. What was your first impression of this book, of Brandy especially? She's quite a character in the Bravo world.
She's a character in any world, Carson. She sounds like quite the person.
Made to be on reality TV, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And I even enjoyed hearing about her parents, the hippy-dippy people they are.
Yeah, and they were on the show a couple times too. Brandy's a very controversial figure on Bravo, but one thing I appreciated about her is she was on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which all the housewife shows are known for extravagance of wealth, But yes. Beverly Hills is especially known for that. And when she moved into an apartment on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, that was shocking, in a sense that she was showing it, because most other people would have asked a friend, can I pretend that I live at your big, beautiful house? But she was like,
oh, sure.
So she showed the reality. It was like, nope, I'm moving up and it's into a rental in Encino, and that's great for me. So I appreciated that about her, but she's very much a controversial thing. And even in this book, there's stuff she said, I was like, that's kind of racist, Brandy, or you shouldn't say that. Don't say you're from the ghetto of I didn't like that. Did anything kind of surprise you about her storytelling?
Oh, my goodness, so many things. Well, her language is rather, earthy. And while I'm not a prude and I don't mind reading it, she's very frank and open, and the way she described her life. I mean, she talked about, that she has HPV, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, HPV. She talked about she brought it up a lot.
She did. And because, I imagine having something like that would affect you all the time. Mm-hmm. And her postpartum depression and taking the pills she takes. And I mean, it would and the amount of money they spent on that divorce. I mean, the money she spent on her vaginal rejuvenation, the numbers astounded me. I can't imagine.
And it just breaks my heart now because she's openly very broke. She's selling her clothes on eBay right now. She says, I can't pay my rent every month,
No,
and she can't work for the network anymore because I'll tell you later, but it's a big lawsuit thing that happened. So there's she can't really work, and she's having all these issues because she got more plastic surgery and it's moving around in her face. And she wrote this book in 10 years ago almost, and she talks about the plastic surgery here.
Well, that's and because I was kind of wondering about what's happened to her boys, and because I think she was a good mom. Mm-hmm. I think she seemed to handle, at least what she's written in the book, that she handled their questions very well. I applaud her honesty. Mm-hmm. And not trying to duck the subject and not trying to make her husband the bad guy in all this.
Well, I really like that part too. I think that's probably why it's okay, you're doing kind of not so great stuff, but you're so honest and you are a pretty good mom. I really enjoyed how when her son was like, is daddy going to hell because he's a cheater?
Oh,
and she was like,
perfect.
No, he's just a bad husband.
I love that. That was one of the places I marked because I thought that is so true. Divorce is hard on kids. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if I were her, I would have hated that man so much, and it'd be hard not to tell your kids, yes, he's going to hell.
Yeah.
But the way she handled that was so good.
Want to know something fun now about a Brandy update? Her and Leanne are friends now. She now
Wow.
spends the holidays with Leanne and Eddie. Isn't that
Oh my
interesting?
goodness. Well, I've been watching streaming old shows of Reba, and she's friends with her ex-husband and his wife, and so it made me think that would be ideal. So I'm glad that Brandy's able to do that.
This is probably the only time in Brandi Glanville's life she will ever be compared to Reba McEntire, and good job for her, Brandi. So a lot of the book really is about betrayal, divorce, public fallouts. So Brandi finds out about her husband's affair when the photos of him and LeAnn Rimes go public. How do you think she handled the situation like publicly? Because there was so much like tabloids and pressure, and like he was like this E-list celebrity, and this made him like C-list,
Which I think was hard for. I mean, when you have it out there so everybody knows, I think she handled it the way felt right to her, because that had to be so devastating. Not only do you know about it, which often in my age, when I was young, the wife may know, but the whole world didn't know. And so the social media has just changed all that.
Yeah. And I think I don't know what it's like to have tabloids calling me, but we all know what it's like with social media now, that we all kind of have this like public persona that used to not really be a thing. And she even talked about like she didn't even know how the internet really worked before all this.
Well, she caught on to the whole tweeter thing, didn't she? I mean,
she really did.
The pound tweets, I guess a pound sign, I don't know what you call it, but
hashtag. Yeah.
Hashtag,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Hashtag this, hashtag that.
I thought, boy, now she's really an expert on tweeting.
It is tweeting and drinking.
I wondered if she still does it as much now, or if she's one of those who left the X platform. So
yeah, I don't know if she's on there, but I know she has a podcast, so I know she talks a lot still. She writes a lot, though, about being financially dependent on Eddie, which I found kind of like, it was almost like financial abuse in a way, because she couldn't work, really. He didn't want her to work. But it left her like so vulnerable, like post-divorce. Are there like any lessons you think women could like take away from that experience?
Oh, when my girls were growing up, I said, you've got to be able to support yourself. And I think every woman should, because when I was growing up, we were expected to have the husband take care of us. And I firmly believe every woman should expect at some point in her life to have to take care of herself. So definitely don't ever become totally financial dependent upon a man.
And it's like he didn't want her to work, and he had like all the bills like sent to his parents. Like I just found it so it made her so dependent on him. Like she didn't know how to do anything when they broke up.
I know. And to me, that's very old fashioned, because there are a lot of women who are my age who are that way, and their husbands die and then they're stuck. They don't know how to do anything. And for a young woman like Brandi to be that way, I found that a bit shocking.
I felt like Brandi was never like told she could do anything else, besides be pretty. And so she didn't even see how it was possible. And I think this divorce was like, oh, I'm a little brash and loud, and I say it like it is. And it almost like gave her like, oh, I have like a skill in a way,
That's true. She's put it to good use, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. So the whole chapter about the vaginal rejuvenation surgery as a post-divorce gift herself, and she charged it to Eddie's Amex. What did you think? Was that revenge? Was that ridiculous?
I think that was strictly revenge. I really do. I mean, I know nothing about that surgery. In fact, I'd never heard of it. Had to look it up when I read about it in the book. But it seems a bit silly to me, but I think it was just like slashing his tires. She's going to do everything she can to get back at him.
Yeah, that part was.
But, if you want to do something like that and you have the money, go for it. Or he had.
Well, he didn't even have the money. Let's be real. Like,
No.
I think they lived way beyond their means for
Okay.
sure. That's my theory, because I'm just like, even as an actor, like, he's not famous. So, like, there is a cap of what he could be making. I think they were living well beyond their means.
Well, I kind of wondered that because, I mean, when she talks about the money they spent and the way they lived, it's like, how do you do that? I mean, it's beyond my comprehension. And I'd never heard of him before, so he wasn't that famous.
No, he was like on a soap, I think. He was on like Young and the Restless. And then when she was on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills around this time, she would talk about the amount in child support she got. She got $1,000 a month, which in LA for 2 kids, that's nothing.
No.
That is nothing, you know? So it's like, and that was court mandated. So that's why I'm like, his income must have not been that much. Now, likely, I think once he got with Leanne, they were living off her money, is my guess.
That's what it sounded. I even picked that up from the book, that she was kind of supporting him. And I had heard of Leanne.
Oh, yeah. The way she talked about Leanne being a child star, I was like, brutal. Like, Brandy's one person I would never want to be in a fight with. Like, I would be a little scared.
I would too. I would avoid her because she's going to do anything and everything if she's mad at you, I think.
I did, back on the vaginal rejuvenation, one thing I liked about that chapter is I feel like people are either, one, they don't talk about plastic surgery, they just act like it never happened and it's all just, you know, they were born like that. Or it's a second, it's like, well, you should do what you want and everyone has their own thing. And I get that line of thinking, but she did describe how painful it was very vividly. And I think she was just so honest. So it made me be like, yeah, I don't think that was worth it, or it wouldn't be worth it to me because of the amount of pain she was in. And she was someone who had a high pain tolerance. Like she said, getting her boobs done didn't hurt, but this was like the worst.
It sounds terrible. Yeah, after reading that, I thought, no, even if I had the money, I don't think I'd do it.
No.
Yeah, it did sound horrible.
Yeah, it was like, you know, is it empowering or are you just trying to distract yourself? And I think maybe the metaphor of like a new vagina that Eddie's never seen was like the overall thing, but is it worth it? You know, all that pain just for a metaphor?
I think now she'd say no, it wasn't. But
yeah, I think so too. And I think she would want that money.
And she was used to getting her body fixed up because that was what she showed to the public. I mean, that was her ticket to stardom or whatever.
She talked about even how as a model, she wasn't a face girl, she was a body girl. And, you know, and I think it kind of forced her to see her body as this, like, not her own, you know, that it doesn't belong to her.
This is how I make my money, so therefore I have to keep it looking good. And
I do feel like she uses humor and shock as like an armor. Do you think that can help her healing, or does it get in the way? Like, have you ever felt like, maybe not as crude as that, but putting up armor in a way?
I think that's a normal reaction, that rather than let everybody, because sometimes if you start going down into pain and feeling it, it's harder to climb out. So if you can find humor in things.
And she is funny. She is really funny.
Yeah, she is.
I do think the book overall is about betrayal in a way. Like, you know, the one chapter where she talked about the woman who she like helped through her divorce, and then when she got divorced, she wasn't there. Like, I think there's this continuous thing with Brandy just feeling betrayed, and all she had was her boys, you know, her sons.
That's why I loved her description of the 3 groups of girlfriends, because there are those who took advantage of her. Just, you know, you pay for the meals and stuff, and I'll go out and drink with you, and then there were those who right away left her. And then the ones who stuck with her. And I think we've all had experience with those different kinds of friends.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she was, I mean, not only her husband, and that happens in any divorce. People feel like they have to choose sides, and particularly when it's couples. And the couples don't want to be together anymore, then it's like, oh dear, which one do we see, and so forth. So,
and her husband married a bigger celebrity.
That had to hurt.
Like, the book is a lot about fame and like what someone will do to be famous and like the lines he'll cross,
Yes.
So she says that tweeting like helped her cope, and she said Twitter was cheaper than therapy. Do you think social media can be therapeutic? Because when I thought about this, I was like, no way, like go to therapy. But then I thought about when Jake died and how I would like go look at like his Facebook profile and like read stuff he wrote and like imagine his voice and like share photos of him, and like then other people who like loved him would like share that. So like my first reaction was no, and then I thought about all the times I've done it myself.
Wow. I hadn't thought about that, but I do that too with Jake and Max and John, my husband. It's fun to see those Facebook memories and see their pictures and then have other people respond, oh yes, I remember that, or we miss him. It does. It makes you feel good. So you're right. In that way, it is therapeutic to put their name out there, because often when you've lost somebody or even through divorce or death or something, people don't want to bring the subject up there. And so if you can initiate it,
it's a way to signal like, I want to talk about this. I want this to be a conversation.
Exactly. So I hadn't thought about that way, but it is.
Obviously, I've never been divorced, but a lot of the feelings she had, I was like, it sounds like grief, in a lot of ways.
It is. I think a divorce, you have, and maybe more grief than a death sometimes, because, John and I had 60 years together, and I knew he was dying, so I had time to adjust a bit. But with a divorce, it's that anger that's there that there's nothing to do with.
Yeah, because the other person's still there. It's not that final ending,
Right. Right.
So Brandy often talks about putting her sons first, but she's constantly battling Leanne. How do you think that tension might have affected the kids? And like, how could she have handled it differently? Or were they maybe too little to even really pick up on it? What are your ideas on that?
Oh, I think the kids definitely were affected. And I would like to hear what they say today, because it sounded like they spent a lot of time with their father and Leanne. So they had to know their mother was hurting.
I feel like it would have been hard because Leanne was buying and providing this lavish lifestyle, and Brandy just couldn't keep up. And especially like in LA too. Like, and I imagine that because her boys now, I think one's like a senior in high school and the other one's like in his mid-20s, the older one.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't think they'll ever read her books. I think it'll be like too much for a boy. Like, I think maybe a daughter would later in life, but maybe a son would be like, yeah, I don't need to read that.
I agree. I think they probably won't be too interested. Although it's funny because my youngest daughter, when she was a teenager, she asked if her dad and I would get divorced because her friends had there were so many divorced parents, and they got all these great things from the parents trying to compete with each other. so I think the kids probably enjoyed that part of it.
I remember that too, like as a divorced kid, or even whenever one of my brothers died, like it was like an influx of like people trying to buy your affection. And when you're small, it feels good for a second, but you don't remember any of that actually long term as an adult. Like I don't remember the things that were given to me when I was 10,
That's true.
You like remember who picks you up from school and, who took you on to do this or that, but you don't remember things as vividly. Brandy, a lot of it, it's her talking about how she's not always proud of her behavior, but she has this like need to fight in her life. Do you think it's harder for women to be like messy and emotional publicly than it is men?
Oh, absolutely. They get so much criticism. That's not fair. They expect a woman just to sit there silently and take it. I admire her for fighting back. I think
Me
more
too.
women need to do that. We need to say, hey, you're not going to walk all over us.
And she was like, yeah, like all the things were like, she's, you know, her language is very, and we're not prudes, but it's like every word. I mean, she says, see you next Tuesday more than like anyone. And I'm like, whoa. And that's why she was so interesting on the show too, Grammy, because it's all these very like pompous women, especially early Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. It's very like, oh, did you go to the charity? And she's like, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, and no one liked her at first. Like she had a hard time making friends.
Oh, that's tough. Yeah. You would have to just accept her. Of course, I like women to be themselves and not be putting on a show. So,
yeah, it's authentic to her. And like, I feel like she's just kind of saying what everyone's thinking and too afraid to say.
I think so too.
So she joins the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills basically to just support herself. Like she's just like happy to have a job. What do you think? Like, do you think going on it was good for her overall? Take the finances out of it? Like, do you think it maybe gave her something to do and maybe somewhere to put this, like, she hated Eddie so much. So maybe like fighting with the other women gave her like somewhere to put that.
Exactly. I'm glad she did it because I think she wouldn't have been happy in a job where she liked being in the spotlight. I mean, she'd been a model and used to having this kind of high lifestyle. So it would have been difficult to have a office job, right? You know, whatever.
She needed
something. I don't think so either. And
I don't think she had the skills.
I think this was perfect for her because shows like that, they want you to have a personality or people aren't going to watch it.
She's actually, Brandi Glanville is the reason we have Vanderpump Rules, Grammy. So it was so cool how this happened. So Brandi, yes, Eddie cheated with Leanne, but remember he was sleeping with some cocktail waitresses in West Hollywood. And one of those cocktail waitresses was Sheena Shea from Vanderpump Rules. So the opening of Vanderpump Rules was a crossover from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills of Brandi confronting Sheena, and then instead of following Brandi back in her SUV towards Beverly Hills, the camera switched all of a sudden and went through the restaurant. And now you're through the eyes of a server.
Wow.
Sheena's book is coming out this summer and we're going to read it in like 2 months. So we'll probably read her point of view of the whole situation.
Well, that will be fun. Yes.
Guys, Grammy's never ever going to watch these shows to see it for herself. She wants to read it. So the book really ends with her being like, I'm still figuring it all out. Do you think there's any growth in the book or do you think it's more just like a cycle of the same thing?
I do think there's growth. I mean, she went from being just the housewife and now she's managing her own finances. She's gotten sober. She seems to have a relationship with her sons. And I think there was growth.
I do too.
This is the first book that I was curious enough to get on Wikipedia, and I Googled her to try to find out more about her.
She's fun to Google. She's really fun to Google. When she was doing her eBay store, I was like, this is so interesting.
Yes.
Okay, Grammy, are you ready to give it our ratings?
Yes.
Okay, so I gave it 3 olives because to me it was fun read. It wasn't super insightful or like crazy high written, but I enjoyed every page and it was a quick read.
Well, I've got to give it 3 olives too.
Woo!
I enjoyed it. So here's to Brandi.
To Brandi. Cheers.
Cheers.
And we'll have some martinis together soon.
Yes. We'll see you next week.
I'll see you next week.
And then this fall.
Yeah. And if you guys are listening and it's next week, just know there won't be an episode next week because I'm hanging out with Grammy. We will be off for a little bit in June and then we'll come back. All right. Love you guys. Follow us on social media. Bye.
Bye.